Welcome to the Employment Wednesday podcast with Yvonne Shabangu. Have you heard of the scripture Hosea 4 verse 6? My people perish because of the lack of knowledge. The same applies to your career. When you don't know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, you are likely to make wrong career choices. But worry not. Employment Wednesdays is here for you to offer you all the answers relating to your career and offer you strategies to develop your career. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. You are welcome to another episode of Law Without Borders. And today I'm seated with one of my faves, Zolile Shude, a graduate from the University of KZN, which is the first. He served his articles at Siri, and he is currently a law clerk for Justice Theron at the Constitutional Court of South Africa, where all the important decisions happen. So today he's going to tell us about his career journey. But first, we're going to get to know him before we go into that. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. I've waited too long.
I guess I do owe you an apology. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's good to finally make this happen. You know, when you say you're busy, people don't understand.
sometimes
they
it feels
think
like,
you're trying to
you
make
dodging
yourself
for
an
that.
important person.
Sure.
But yeah, it gets really hectic.
Thank you so
my
much. I
job
can
is
understand the time that you took to actually be here. Truly appreciate it. So we're going to go into the icebreaker questions, right? This is where we try to get to know you outside the serious stuff. So the first one would be, if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Um, I think it would be being invincible.
Okay.
So that I can sometimes disappear from the eyes of people.
Okay.
And be in spaces I'm not supposed to without people seeing me there.
Okay.
Yeah, like I feel like invincibility is what I would.
Okay.
There's quite a few actually.
Okay, maybe give us another one.
I'd also like want to fly, to
Oh,
be able to fly. Because of everything it signifies. Just looking at the world from the bird's eye view would be great. And because like I really like eagles as animals and as like symbols. So, yeah.
Okay, I love that. And then if you were a type of drink, what would you be and why?
If I was,
A type of a drink, which one would you be and why?
okay, what are the options?
No, there are no options. Any type of drink.
I'd be a Coca-Cola.
Okay. You're the second person to say that. Why
I'd be a
Coca-Cola?
Coca-Cola. I'm a dark-skinned man. And, I'd like to believe that I'm a nice person. So, and people enjoy me and my company and, yeah. And people love Coke.
All right.
And my mother loved Coke.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think I'd be my mother's favorite drink.
All right. What is your strangest food combination?
Strangest. It's rice, fried egg,
Okay.
and rama.
I love rice and fried eggs, but I haven't tried it with rama, but yeah, I get it.
So, yeah, because of how I grew up, it's a trick my mother taught me. Whenever it was tough, she'd just cook rice and she'll just take a spoon or a teaspoon of rama, pour it into the rice, and then it melts. Then we'll put aromat or salt.
Okay.
And we'd have that. But then, like, when there's eggs, you add the egg on top of it.
Yes, because I do know that rum and eggs, it does slap. I don't even put like much salt in it because like it's got like flavor.
Yeah. I think
Okay. All right, now that we know a bit about you, now we're going to go into the bit serious stuff. In high school, what did you want to be and why?
I wanted to be many things.
Yes.
I wanted to be many things. At some point, I wanted to like sing.
Okay. Can you sing?
And I'm decent.
All right. Before we move on, what's your favorite song?
My favorite song. It's difficult to tell because I listen to different genres.
Okay.
Right. I listen
But
to
your current.
gospel. I think a song I'm playing right now is "The Man" by can't pronounce his name, but the one that says, "Well, you can tell everybody."
Oh,
It's
I'm
that
the
song.
man, I'm the man, I'm the
Yeah,
man.
that's the
Oh my
song.
God, that's one of my favorite
That's my
songs.
favorite song that I'm currently listening to. But I listen to different genres of music, so I have like different favorite songs
Okay.
from different genres. So yeah,
And you thought you could be a musician.
I thought I could sing,
All right.
and they hyped me up as a kid. I used to be like in a school choir,
Sure.
but this was in primary, not high school. But I still had that with me when I went into high school to be like, I want to sing and be famous. But then at I think around grade 9, my father like influenced me and convinced me that I should be a civil engineer
Okay.
at some point because of my public speaking and debating. I thought I could be the president of this
Oh,
country.
all right. You never know.
At different points in my high school journey, I wanted to be different things. And I think the civil engineering thing, I wanted to do it for my father.
Okay.
It wasn't really a dream of mine. Yeah.
So then, where is the turning point where you end up going to study for law?
It's 2013.
Okay.
So I was in the debating team at school. So and there used to be a league in KwaMashu, the
Okay.
township I grew up in, called KwaMashu Debating League. Basically, the high schools competing against each other. So we won the league. Then we went into provincials. Then I got to represent KZN
Okay.
in the National Schools Debating tournament, which was held in Joburg. So that was my first trip outside of KZN. And the finals of that debating tournament were held at Constitution Hill.
Okay.
So I think that's where the dream of becoming a lawyer started. When I saw the court, when we did the tour and learned about everything that went into building the Constitutional Court. And we had a keynote address from Advocate Stephen Budland, ISC, and he spoke to us about doing work that matters, doing work that will help South Africa be a better place, that will further our constitutional democracy. And at the time, my best friend now, who was my coach at the time, was a law student.
Okay.
So I sort of like became really curious and interested in the law and spoke to him about it. And that's where the dream was born
Okay.
to become a lawyer.
I love that. So then, when you decide to apply at UKZN, was it always the plan to go to UKZN, or you had other plans, other universities? Why UKZN?
I had other plans. So I did matric twice in the same school, right?
Okay.
Initially, I matriculated in 2014.
All right.
And when before I matriculated in 2014, I'd wanted to go to WITS.
Okay.
I'd always wanted to go and study at WITS because of everything that you hear about that institution, conquering the edge and all.
Yeah.
So that was my university of choice. But then 2014, I didn't have enough points
Okay.
to pursue my law degree. And so I went back to high school, matriculated again in 2016. But this time, I chose UKZN because when I applied to both WITS and UKZN, WITS had made it mandatory to do the 5-year thing, the 5-year route,
okay.
to first do a BA and then do 2 years of LLB, whereas UKZN, you could do the straight LLB. And I was, at that point, I didn't feel like I needed an undergraduate degree. I felt like I wanted to go straight into law. So yeah, that's what I did. I went to UKZN, and what a special law school. Like if I would rank, and I'm not being biased,
All right.
for me it's like the top law school in this country.
Nobody can beat UJ. Like, nobody can beat UJ. Like, I mean
yeah, like UKZN is amazing.
Okay.
That law school is great. The migraines it gave me aside, the tough times, but I think it's one of the top law schools in this country. And I sort of like, I'm proud of that decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're able to do that. So I'm interested in the part where you don't get enough points, right? And then what happens? That was in 2014. What did you get up to in 2015? And what gave you the courage to go back to school? Because not so many people are keen on going back and repeating.
You remember I told you like at some point I made a decision I want to be a civil engineer.
Sure.
So my father was still alive at the time. And so in high school I had chosen science
Okay.
subjects. So I was doing physics, I was doing math, I was doing life sciences, pure math, and I was doing life sciences because that was sort of the path I was leaning towards.
Sure.
But people close to me know this. I'm a teenage father, right?
Oh, okay.
So when I was in matric in 2014, had a baby.
Okay.
Her name is Zolile. She's just 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
I had a baby, and for a person from the background I am from, that complicated life.
Okay.
It complicated life because my parents could barely afford me. I had to work on school holidays, weekends to make sure I had shoes and uniform. And so it was a very stressful year in my life. I was in matric. There's this baby coming, so it affected me mentally. And sort of like I had to think about it now that I'm older and I can understand things better. But I sort of went into like a depression, and that affected my results. I was able to pass matric, but I didn't get like
Good marks.
good marks to enable me to go to a university. So in 2015, when the year began, I approached a friend of mine, and I told him that I wanted to go and study a diploma in electrical engineering in one of the private colleges. And he was so kind to pay for me.
Wow. You've got some great friends. Hey, I hope
I've
you guys
got
are
some
still friends.
amazing friends. I've got some amazing people in my life. So he paid for my fees, and they don't have semesters, they have trimesters. He paid for the first trimester, but unfortunately, he also had a baby. And so he couldn't continue, paying for my fees. So I had to drop out of college and went back to work. I'd always been working at Wimpy during holidays, first as a table cleaner, then as like a food runner, so the person that takes the food to the tables. And so I sort of went back there on like a permanent employment basis. And that's what I did the whole of 2015. Worst year of my life. The most difficult year I've ever had. And so, I was doing that. I was working at Wimpy as a food runner. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine who I was in matric with in 2014, who was now doing his first year at WITS in accounting. And I'd promised him when we got the results that I was going to fix my marks. And this was around like July, August 2015. He calls me and he's like, yo, dude, I'm in the SRC this side. I can sort you out with NSFAS and stuff. Were you able to fix your results? Like, are you going to write? What's happening? And so then the plan to go back to school started. Because that whole year I'd been very depressed.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about my future. I was at Wimpy, very frustrated. And when you'd been a kid who's been gifted like I was, to do really well in school, I always did well in school. So it was a very like depressing time of my life. I was at Wimpy with these grown-ups whose job this is their life. Like they don't see themselves outside of this.
Yeah.
And for me as a young person, I used to want to talk about the future. Like,
And
what
now
are we doing?
your thoughts are like suppressed because now you're in this environment that doesn't enable you to dream. And
Yes.
you're like, okay, what must happen? And I think that's why it speaks to, it's important who you surround yourself with and where you are, your environment, because it does enhance who you become. Because imagine also if you didn't go back to school, who knows, you probably would have just said, this is the life I have. Let me stick it out. And that's how people end up wasting their lives away, because certain environments suppress them and make them think a certain way, and they don't think about their future from a different light. So I'm really so proud of you, the fact that you were like, you know what, I made a promise to my friend. I'm going to honor that promise. And a special shout out to, I always say, I'm blessed with the most beautiful community, right? And I'd always give flowers to friends that hold you accountable, friends that remind you of the dream. Because sometimes you forget the dream, you know? Sometimes you relax and you're like, you know what, I'll see it. But having people that are like, hey, remember you said this podcast was going to make season 7? Why are you stuck on season 2? What's going on? What can we do for you? So I'm really grateful for you on your behalf to have those type of friends. And I'm proud of you to have honored your word and said, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to pick myself up. So that season, you define it as the worst year of your life. But what is the biggest lesson you've taken away from it?
That God has a plan. Do you know? I don't know if it's a verse in the Bible or a song. I think it's a song
Sure.
that says "Singena la kuthiwa kungenwa khona, siphume la kuthiwa akuphunywa khona," and that's exactly what God did with my life. If you look back to that young man during that year, I didn't see myself going out. I thought that was it for me. But God made a plan, and
Sure.
He saw me through that tough time. So the biggest lesson was for me that He always has a plan, and His plan is bigger than my plan.
Sure.
Because I remember, you know, when you grow up as a kid and everybody tells you how smart you are, you're so brilliant, you're gonna do great things, you're so smart, you're gonna do amazing things, you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that. And then when you find yourself in that situation, it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I have this brain? How can I have all these talents and gifts and still be here cleaning tables? You
Sure.
understand what I'm trying to say? But God always has a master plan. And so, you know, He saw me through that year, through my depression. And, you know, I went back to my previous high school. I actually tried to write at the end of 2015.
Okay.
But the principal at the time told me it was not a good idea, that I wasn't going to pass.
Yes.
Because I hadn't been studying the whole year. So he said to me, you know what, I suggest you come back next year, go back to grade 11,
Yeah.
fix your matric, then matriculate properly, and then pursue your dreams. It's just 2 years. And I said to him, you know what, I'll come back to you with an answer on that.
Sure.
And I remember walking out of his office thinking, this man must think I'm crazy.
He can't
I
be
was
serious.
head boy in the school.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows me. I'm not going to come back to the school
Yeah.
and wear the uniform again.
Yeah.
So then I went about my business. And actually, in January of 2016, my best friend, who I've known for 15 years, because he was in matric in 2015, got his results. And I remember standing at the garage being like, damn, you know, these are such good results. He's going to go to university and stuff. And during that January period, we both went and tried to like get registered at DUT. But each time I showed my results,
It's
they
like,
kept saying, your math is bad, your physics is bad, this is bad. But for him, like, his things
Was
worked
smooth.
out,
Sure.
you know? And I'll never forget this moment. I was standing outside Steve Biko campus at the Durban University of Technology when I made the decision to go back to high school. Like, I was standing by myself just thinking, and my friend popped up and he was like, yo, dude, like, what's happening? We've been looking for you. And I was like, I need you to accompany me. I'm going to go talk to my principal. I'm going back to high school. He was like, are you sure? I was like, yes, I'm sure. I'm going back to high school. And yeah, went back to high school, back to grade 11, back to uniform. It was very humiliating.
Sure.
It was one of the toughest decisions I've ever had to make. Remember, I had a young child who was about 2-3 years old at the time, and to make that decision was very, very, very difficult. And I was in grade 11, and I think I was there for like a month, and then the principal called me into his office. He was like, it was a Friday. He was like, I want you to go over the weekend, go home, write a letter to me why I would not be making a mistake by putting you in the matric class. And I was like,
Ooh. You have to motivate for it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went home, was like, I'm going to write immediately.
Mm-hmm.
When I got home, took off my shirt, tried to write, nothing.
Nothing was coming out.
Saturday, tried, nothing. On a Sunday night, like evening around 5, I prayed and then I wrote all the reasons. But the decision had already been made. Excuse me. Then I took the letter to him. Fast forward, I'm in a matric class of 2016 and I matriculate with 6 distinctions. Yeah.
This is so inspiring, right? Because, like, it reminds me, I think it's a scripture as well that says God turns graves into gardens. You know, he qualifies the unqualified. But I love what God does to you. He humbles you. I always say God is so hilarious in his ways, right? You are smart. There is no doubt about it. We know it. And also the knowing you are going to be great. I mean, you are great. It was always a thing. But also just taking you back and saying, these are the sacrifices that you need to make. And also showing you that you are not bigger than the dream. The dream is bigger than you. And there's certain uncomfortable places that I'm going to put you in. And these places may seem like it's the end, but it's the refining. You know, it's because when you think about it, let's say you did well in science, right? You could have ended up a civil engineer, but you wouldn't be where you are right now. And you wouldn't be a guest on Law Without Borders, you know? So it's like, I believe in divine orchestration. Every single thing happens for our good, the bad and the good. You know, obviously we throw tantrums and it's hard going through certain things, but it's those moments where God shows that he's God. I mean, if we're not tested, how would we know that God is God? You know, because now you're able to sit there and be like, you know what? God always has a plan because you've seen it. You are the evidence that he always has a plan. So I really love that. And I really hope that people at home take that away from you to say, being the smartest person in the room or being the most gifted person does not exempt you from going through stuff, does not exempt you from reputation. You could be the best at whatever. There's this, I don't know if you've watched it, the documentary by, who's that lady? The Olympics one, where she had to withdraw, like she lost out on the, is it gymnastic Olympics? I'm forgetting her name. But there's a period where she could not participate in the World Olympics because she had forgotten how to do things. She had such a medical condition and stuff. And then she's the best in the world, right? But then she had to go retrain, practice, put herself together again. And mind you, we're talking about the best in the world. We're talking about a person that has done things that people have never done, but she had to go back to the drawing board. She had to find herself again. And she came back, and when she came back, she was still one of the best. Like, I think she got third place. But these are the things that show you that being the best doesn't exempt you from certain things of life. And sometimes you need to learn, and learning is never really easy or comfortable. It's sometimes uncomfortable.
God's lessons.
They're very rough. Like, sometimes it feels like God ruffles your feathers and you're like, but I don't deserve this. But in hindsight, you always have these aha moments. You're like, I get it. I understand why it happened the way it did. So now you go into UKZN. How was that transition? Do you think high school prepared you for university?
I do. I remember at this time I'm a bit older.
Okay.
When I go to university, I'm a bit older. And I sort of like was very focused in high school, was very like grounded and like studying like a madman. So it prepared me. But also I'd seen life. I'd been outside high school, I'd been outside that shell, you know. When you're in high school, you're very protected. You have teachers, you are in school for like 7-8 hours a day, so you don't get to really see the real world. So that transition was smooth academically.
Okay.
But it was very tough in other ways because remember this time I was now doing like math lit, history, geography, those things. And there aren't many bursaries for like law in general. And I had such really good marks. So when I go into UKZN, I'm thinking like I'm gonna get like bursaries. I'm gonna be fine. But it doesn't happen that way, right? I don't get them. Like things don't go according to plan. So that first year was difficult financially, right? I was killing it academically, but like I would go to bed without eating. I had the same pair of jeans for like 6 months. Um, a friend of mine from varsity would like help me lay by stuff at the time. You know, pants, t-shirts, shoes. So financially, it was really tough at first year. So, but in academically, I was doing so well. Like I was at home. I lived in the library, so I had no life at all besides school. Um, but yeah, the transition was that. It was
Okay.
challenging in other ways, smooth in other ways.
Okay, so it was dual. So you doing well in your studies, but also financially it's a bit tough. What would you say to a person that's in grade 11 or grade 12 looking to go into law in terms of bursaries? Do you think they should apply for bursaries post going into uni? Where would they find those bursaries?
Like I said, like I didn't get them. And I think maybe they are like better people to speak on this than me. What I can say though is if there are opportunities to apply for funding while you're still in high school, please do so
Sure.
at your earliest convenience. Make sure your grades are good as early as grade 11 and put yourself out there. Look
Sure.
for opportunities for like bursaries and stuff. But I studied through NSFAS, also apply for that.
Okay.
it's
All
it's
right.
okay. I was lucky when I got it in 2018. I think that changed it structurally from being a loan or something like that.
Like free education and etc. Oh
So
yeah.
I was lucky. But yeah, do put yourself out there at your earliest convenience. And you know, high school kids don't want to make these decisions in high school because they feel like it's like problems for later. But I would say start thinking about what you want to do from grade 10.
Yeah.
Like start finding yourself. What are you good at? Do you want to be a lawyer? Is law actually something you want to do?
Sure.
Or is it someone else's dream? Like how being a civil engineer was my dad's
Sure,
yeah.
sure. You must have your why.
you know? And make those decisions early.
Sure. I love that. That's great advice. And then now you're done with your articles. What was the plan with the law degree? Did you know the options you had? Did you know where to from there?
I did.
Oh my God. Okay.
Luckily, listen, remember I make the decision to study law back in 2013.
All right. Okay.
So by the time I go back to high school, I already know I'm going to do an LLB afterwards. And the friends that I have, most of them have done the LLB. And I knew when I was in law school that I was going to be a public interest lawyer. Like that public law, administrative law, constitutional law was my thing, was my passion. Because for me, that's what the law is about. The law is about trying to make lives better. And not that you can't make that difference from a different space in the legal field, but I feel like that's the sphere that's more impactful, that is in contact with poor people, with their rights on a daily basis. So I already knew I was going to go into public interest. I knew what my options were there.
Okay.
And my friends were already in that space when I was still in varsity. I didn't apply to like a single corporate firm.
Okay.
'Cause
So
I was
deliberately, so you're just like,
deliberately,
no.
I never like applied to a corporate firm because I was like, I'd made that decision
Sure.
to be a public interest lawyer. And so, you know, inspired by my friends, inspired by my community and the work and the love I have for my people. I was watching a series the other day. It's a law series. I think it's called The
Lincoln Lawyer, love it.
And when legal gives Mickey advice in one of the episodes, he says, there is no more noble cause in this planet than defending those who are wrongly accused. And for me, it's standing for the poor.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a more noble cause than trying to make South Africa a better place. Trying to make sure that the Constitution is a living document. Trying to make sure that everybody's rights are adhered to. And we change status quo. So in law school, I'd already made that decision. And then I did internships and stuff. at Richards Poor Attorneys, for example, and that was, public law, land
Sure.
law. So I would travel to Limpopo. I would see how mining communities are affected by mining projects and defend those rights. I would travel to KZN and do the same thing in the Eastern Cape as well. So yeah, for me, I was studying to complete the degree and pursue my dream.
Oh, you're living the dream.
Yeah, so I already knew the path I was going to take.
So how then did you secure the internships? Did you get them from Google, LinkedIn?
Um, the okay, my friend was at Richards Poor Attorneys working there. I think he was working there as a candidate attorney.
Sure.
And so he told me, there's this opportunity at the firm. We're trying to get interns for 2 months to do the work. I think you should come through, And so that's how I got that internship through him. And, at the time he was also mentoring me. So that's how I got that internship.
Okay.
And then after that, they hired me when I graduated in 2021 as a litigation consultant. So I wasn't doing articles, but I was doing providing litigation support to the Amatiba Crisis Committee in Eastern Bonderland, doing research, legal advice here and there. But the agreement was after a year, they would take me on board for articles.
Okay.
But that didn't happen. So.
How do you end up at Siri?
So I was very happy at Richards Poor Attorneys. I was happy with the work. I think those are the best clients in the world. Just how resilient they are in their course, and how disciplined they pursue their rights. People of limited education are looked down upon in society, but those people are some of the smartest and wisest people I've ever met. And to be honest, they are some of the best lawyers I've ever met. They just don't have LLB degrees.
Sure.
So I was very happy, and the agreement, remember, was that, after this year, 2021, we'll take you on for articles. But this year, this agreement is in principle.
Yeah.
So during 2021, I'm doing my job. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm just it's fine. We'll speak towards the end of the year. So then, I set them down. We had a meeting. I was it's now July, and I want to know what's happening.
Yes, right? I was still doing the articles.
I was still doing the articles thing, what's happening. And that's when they advised me it wasn't going to be possible.
Okay.
For me to be taken on for articles, citing budgets and stuff.
Okay.
And, it broke my heart because I love that work. I still do. And I'm the biggest fan of that work. But I had to now start putting myself out there. And I saw the post at Siri advertising for articles, and I applied. And I think I applied at the Legal Resources Center as well. But yeah, Siri were the first to get back to me. The Legal Resources Center never got back to me.
They ghosted.
Yeah. So that didn't work out.
Okay.
But Siri called me up to Joburg for an interview. And, the biggest mistake you could ever make with me is give me an interview.
Same. That's how I felt. Don't put me in a position where I'm in an interview because you're going to be forced to hire me. Yeah, okay. So how was your journey with Siri? Did you enjoy the work? And what is one of the best lessons you learned from that?
Some of my best years as a young lawyer, I think Siri provides really, really good training. I would actually put them up there with the big corporate five in terms of training. Maybe better. They just don't have as much resources as those people.
Sure.
But in terms of structure and training and making sure that one becomes a good litigating attorney, they are top tier. So some of my best years as a young lawyer, I got to travel around the country. I got to do labor law. I got to do criminal work. I got to do evictions work. I got to participate, like
Sure.
make a contribution.
Mm-hmm.
I would draft affidavits. I would draft notices and stuff like that. When other candidate attorneys used to say, "I've never drafted anything, like counsel does everything for us." I did all of that.
Yeah.
And they would also allow me to run my own matters in the magistrate courts, to be
Sure.
like, you can take on a case or two that you're gonna manage, like, and be like the person on it. And the biggest lesson is two things. The executive director there, lovely lady, doing really good work leading that institution, said to me one day, a movement lawyer always does what the best that he can for the advancement of his clients' interests. And that's what we always did. That's what we always did. We compromised ourselves. And it's not always a good thing to compromise self for the
Sure.
cause. But I'm proud that I did that because I knew people had a home when they went to sleep. Like people had, their jobs were saved, so that always encouraged me. That's the biggest lesson. And lawyering for liberation, is the second lesson. And anyone who has me on social media will know I often used to use that phrase a lot, to be like, we're not there yet in terms of, rights and true freedom,
Transformation.
transformation. No matter what you define transformation as. So as movement lawyers, as public interest lawyers, and as lawyers in general,
Yeah.
like in whatever space we are in, we need to always push that agenda. We need to always lawyer for liberation, for the liberation of poor people who don't have homes, for the liberation of, Black people in corporate spaces, women in all these institutions. So yeah, those were the two biggest lessons.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm so grateful. I had such a good time. It was very stressful and strenuous, but this was a good time.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Then how do we end up at the ConCourt? How do you come to that decision? Was it always part of the plan, or it just happened to be where you end up?
Everything that's happened in my life, I've manifested it.
Okay.
I've thought about it, prayed about it, then worked towards it.
Sure.
The Constitutional Court was one of my biggest dreams. And like I said, this dream comes from 2013 when I'm sitting in that courthouse and I'm like, wow, this is great. But at the time, I didn't know that there was a possibility to work at the court without being a judge of the court, like a justice of the court. But my best friend who mentored me, who I was telling you about earlier, when he graduated in 2017, he went to Clerk for the former Chief Justice. Right?
Oh, nice.
And I was like, and 2017 is my first year, and his first job was clerking at the Constitutional Court. So I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. What do you guys do? And so he used to tell me about it. And he used to say, it's the best job you could ever have as a young lawyer. And he didn't lie. And he used to say to me, you must apply until you get in. Like
how many times did you apply?
I applied 3 times.
Wow.
I applied when I graduated in 2020, didn't get in. I applied at the end of 2021 or beginning of 2021, didn't get in. And then I applied last year when I finished my articles, and then I got in. It's such a competitive space because you've got all these young, brilliant legal minds who want to come to the court and experience that job. So I manifested it. I used to, even during articles, I used to go to the court and listen to hearings. I used to
out of interest.
The Constitutional Court is my favorite place
Okay.
in this country. Like, for everything it stands for, besides like the work of lawyering. The court, Constitution Hill, when you learn that it used to be a prison during apartheid and that we demolished a prison, took those bricks and built that institution, means so much to me. And so it's my favorite place in this country. And yeah, manifested it, worked towards it, prayed about it.
Sure.
And here we are.
Okay. How did it feel? So the first time you apply, how did it feel not being taken in? Did you feel demoralized, or you were like, we're going to do this again?
I was a bit disappointed. And it's a natural feeling that
Sure.
comes when you don't get something that you desire. But because I was surrounded by that community, like people always told me the court gets about 800, 700 applications a year. And, sometimes it's just like not about you.
Yeah.
It's just not your time.
Yeah, sure.
And so like try again. Some applications, something happens with them
You never know.
in the vetting process. You don't know what happens.
Sure.
But yeah, it's like they told me, it's not about you. You are deserving. You can do the job. So just try again. And, that's when I found courage to be like, I'm going to put myself out there again. And I did.
And how did you feel when you finally get in the third time? And what did you do differently in the third application?
Okay.
Or were you just repeating the same thing?
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
My first application wasn't that good.
Okay.
Because I was a varsity student at
Sure.
the time. My CV was in Word form. My cover letter was not in PDF form. I had a bunch of documents all over. So I was able to learn from those mistakes. What I did differently was like, I read the advert. Like took time to just read the advert. And before I could put everything together, I collected everything that was written there. They said they wanted, a CV. And I was like, okay, let me start with my CV. Made that look good. They said they wanted university transcript and all these things. Made sure I had everything that I needed all together. And then, started writing my cover letter. And, having worked as much as I've worked and having played a part in, recruitment in the previous institutions I've worked at, the mistakes that we make was to send, what do they call it? A standardized cover letter.
Yes, a generic
you don't really
one.
speak to the job, right? You just generally speaking. And so I changed that as well. And I just spoke about the court, what it means to me, and why I wanted to work there, and, put everything together nicely.
Okay. Then how were the interviews? How tough are the interviews?
The toughest interview I've ever undergone. But the justices of the court are very different, right? Because as people would know, you apply to the court. You don't know who's going to shortlist you out of
Sure.
the 11, 10 or 9 permanent judges of the court, right? And then you can get up to like 8 interviews, right? Through just one application.
Okay.
So I had 2 interviews with my judge, Justice Teron. I thank her every day for changing my life. And then Justice Matopo. But they're so rigorous, like they're so tough.
Are they similar to the ones that we see the JSC, the ones happening now? Is it that intense?
I think that's more serious. That's very intense. That's a level above.
Okay.
But yeah, something really close to that. It's tough. You need to know your stuff when you go. Remember you speaking to like one of the senior judges in the country.
You can't BS your way through. They know
someone
the law.
who's practiced law and now who's on the bench and ruled. So you have to know law.
Sure.
You have to know the work of the court. So yeah.
How do the interviews look like? Is it like the law in essence, or is it practical stuff that you need to know about the law, or is it like sort of also general, or it's a combination of both?
I need to tread carefully.
Okay.
Because I'm very limited in what I can say about the court.
Okay.
But what I can say is it's different.
Oh, it's
The
different for
styles
each
are
person.
Very
Okay.
different. The judges don't interview the same way.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's very different. All you have to do is just prepare as hard as you can.
Okay.
For the interview, and yeah.
All right, love
But
that.
it's very tough.
Okay. How does
Doable.
You,
I'm not trying to scare people.
Okay. All right. Tough but doable.
Like it's something that you can do. Definitely.
Okay. All right. I mean, you're a representation that we can.
You can.
Yeah. So how does your day look like? What do your duties look like?
Mostly research.
Okay.
The court sits 4 times a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the last term is now in November. It's going to be my last term at the court. Very sad, because my clerkship ends in December. But yeah, like mostly research about the matters before the court, helping your judge with whatever they need.
Okay.
And yeah, normally that, like the job of the court, and helping your specific judge research, memos, and that stuff.
Okay. Love that. What is the toughest thing about your job where you're like, this is tough, but we got to do it because we have to?
Everything.
Everything.
It's the most rewarding experience, but it's also like a very difficult job because the court hears different matters. It's tax, it's labor, it's criminal, it's everything basically in practice. And if you haven't been exposed to that area of the law, it means you have to do some work getting yourself up to speed, right? With the issues, with sometimes concept and what they mean. And, it's so difficult because everything at the court is very important. It's high stakes. So I think everything about my job is hard.
Okay.
But it's the nice kind of hard.
Oh, okay.
You enjoy it. You're like, this
Okay.
is difficult, but
It brings
I'm
color and
having
meaning.
so much fun.
Okay. Love
Yeah.
that. What's the best lesson you've learned from the job?
That you need to make sure that a product you put out there is good,
Okay.
that you're happy with. And
Okay.
this is a lesson from my judge.
All right.
She stresses you giving her a product that you are happy about.
Yeah. So if you're happy
Don't
with
just
it.
do things,
Okay.
And I think it's important. It's an important lesson for legal practitioners. I've often felt like lawyers get lost in the routine stuff and like they don't really care about the product they put out there. And I think we need to care because it impacts people's lives. So us caring about the law is important. So yeah, care about the product that you put out there. The second one is that you need to be all-rounded. As a
Sure.
lawyer, you need to be able to read, write, and speak.
Sure.
I like, no matter what kind of a lawyer you want to be, whether you just want to be in an office and never go to court, but it's important that you immerse yourself in those three things. And don't just read law, read outside the law.
Sure.
Because you may never know what will come in handy. Remember, like, as much as we use law to solve problems, it's like sometimes it's helpful to read about the actual problem.
Yeah.
And so when it needs the law to resolve, it's something you can
True.
do. So
And I think also at the end of the day, we are dealing with human beings. So you want to be personable. You don't want to be in a position where you're just this robot that just has the laws and stuff. You want to be able to engage with the person or with the problem from a human form, because then obviously there is the law, but there is the actual problem and the roots of that problem. So if you're not well read or you're not vastly informed about certain things, you may find yourself in a position where you are able to help, but bare minimum or at surface level. Okay. So if a person wants to go, I know this is public information, but I'm going to ask for accuracy. If a person wants to go into being a law clerk, where do they apply? And two, financially, is it rewarding? Is it good? Is it what are they looking at?
Yvonne, that job is rewarding in all respects.
Okay, all right.
Well,
Everything is good. Work environment, humonati.
That's why we're all sad when we have to leave.
Okay.
Because you're like, damn, that money was good.
Yeah.
Everything about the job is rewarding. And I think, like, for those who have Twitter, the court will like tweet the call for job applications. But I think they should be available online as well, like in the website of the Office of the Chief Justice, because that's the institution that you apply to. Excuse me. So yeah, that's how you apply. Yeah, mainly the Constitutional Court's Twitter page will have the advertisement.
And you guys get to travel for free, ne?
We don't. We are stationed at the court. I was lucky.
God's favorite king.
I was lucky. You're stationed at the court. I was lucky. My judge was delivering a lecture series at Notre Dame in the US. And she put in a good word for me to come along with her. And literally my first time outside South Africa.
And how did that feel?
It was good. It inspired me to go back to school. So I'm actually entertaining the idea of a master's right now because I visited that institution. Such a beautiful institution, great culture, even great alumni network. So that was a really, really, I think the highlight of my year so far.
Okay.
Career-wise was being able to do that.
All right. Actually, you possibly answered one of my questions because I was going to ask, what has been the highlight of your career?
Career?
Yeah.
I've got many.
Top 3.
Top 3, in no particular order.
Yes, disclaimer.
Well, I think the last 2 in no particular order.
Okay.
But clerking at the Constitutional Court is number 1. And then, getting articles and passing my board exams.
I didn't ask about boards. I don't know how I forgot. How was that experience?
Passing my board exams and, highlights of my career.
Yeah. So, how were boards for you?
Board exams are difficult for all of us. But I think I had a different experience between the 4. I think paper 4 and paper 2 were very easy for me. Like that was easy. Because at UKZN we do accounting for legal practice. So when we did
it was
PLT,
revision.
it was just like, okay, I'm familiar with this. So that was easy. And then the estate stuff. I think what made the exam easy for me was that I attended some guy's thing, like Johan van Eck.
Yes.
Siri, because they're so good, they paid for like all the extra
revision
stuff we
classes
needed, the revision classes, the notes when we needed them. So they paid for me to attend Van Eck's classes, and they did magic wonders for me. I went into that exam. I was more than prepared. But paper 1 and paper 3 were the most challenging. Paper 1 I was able to pass, but paper 3...
come back here.
Oh my God. So tough. And I think what makes it difficult is not that we don't know law. Sure. It's not that we don't know the content. It's that paper is so unpredictable.
True.
The scope is so wide and you sort of don't know
what to expect,
where they are casting the net.
Sure.
It's like you just have to pray that the things that you've studied hard are the ones that are going to come out.
No, that's true.
And I think but I think for people who are more disciplined, if you start early and you go through everything, you should be fine. And not wait for the last month or last 2 months to prepare, like I did.
I hear you. I always say to people that it can seem too comforting. I always say board exams are not a test of intelligence.
That's why they don't have marks on it. It's like it's something you have to do.
It's just one, it's part of process. 2, it's testing your ability to remember a high volume of information, because that's what lawyers basically do. You almost have to remember everything about anything, So I think that's that. If you're going through the most with board exams, don't worry, you're not dumb or anything like that. You just need more time. Start in advance. Repeat as much as you need to, because you do forget stuff, To a gent that wants to go into corporate, right? What do you think they should have, an outfit that they should have in their wardrobe? One item where you're like, this is non-negotiable. As a gent going into corporate, you must have this.
Okay, I've never been in a corporate space.
Okay, workspace.
But, you must have a suit.
Okay.
You have to have a suit in your wardrobe as a lawyer. I pride myself in looking decent. I try my best. Have a suit. Have at least 8 white shirts.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
But the
right.
most important thing or person is you.
Okay. I'd assume a black suit.
Yes.
Okay.
Black is my favorite color.
All right.
But I do wear other colors. But like people who know me know I'm always in black or white.
All right.
Yeah.
And then if you you were to name the current season of your life, what would you name it?
I'm reaping a lot of the things that I saw. Like ukuvuna okutshalile,
Oh, okay. We have Vuna
the
man.
fruits of my labor.
Okay.
Like are coming into fruition. My dream job, which is the clerk at the court, came true. I finished board exams. I traveled to the USA, and I feel like staying disciplined, working hard, because law needs you to do something more than just being smart.
Sure.
Yvonne, like we're all brilliant, but you have to do something more than being brilliant. You have to read. You have to work really hard in order to be the best lawyer that you can be. And I feel like we owe the profession that. There's so many lawyers. Not so sure there's many good lawyers.
Yeah.
Because not many of us care. But
Yeah.
I want everyone to care about being a good lawyer. And so I'm really, really like in a season where I'm like seeing the fruits of my labor, but also like I'm very junior career-wise. I'm still awaiting admission. Hopefully I'll get admitted before the end of the year. If not, early next year. And then I can just go back to the profession and like grow. But yeah, the hard work that started back in 2016, I've achieved all of those dreams. I've ticked all of those off my list. And what's left for me now is to make new goals. What does the next 10 years look like? You know? Yeah.
I love that. What is one book or podcast that you think a person should listen to or read in their lifetime?
I'm very boring in a sense that all I read is law and all I listen to and watch is law. So I'm not the best person to give general advice on that. But for lawyers, I listen to 5 to 4, an American podcast about that country's legal system and cases in the Supreme Court. I listen to Just Us Under a Tree, which is a podcast founded by my friends. They talk about the Constitutional Court. They talk about the cases of the court and the judiciary in general. Your podcast, people should listen to.
Oh, love it.
You're doing important work. I think these conversations are necessary for the ones still studying, for the ones still looking for articles, for the ones struggling to be like, there's so many possibilities. There's many avenues I can follow. And, I need to trust the process. I need to change decisions I make. And read Land Matters. By Advocate Mugai Toby.
Okay.
Yeah, read that book. It's quite good. I found it very, very educational because the land question is a really pressing matter.
Yeah, it is a pressing matter.
We need to give attention to.
Thank you so much for honoring my invite. This is probably one of my favorite episodes. I'll tell you why off camera.
You're not just saying that to say
No,
that.
I'm this is gonna go in the air, so it means I'm also compromising my other guests, right? So this is one of my favorite episodes because I learned quite a lot. There's certain episodes I put out there for other people, but this one I felt like it spoke to me. It was for me, So I truly appreciate that you took your time, you came here, you shared your journey. And to people at home, I hope you learned something. If you have failed or your life has taken a detour, don't let that be the end or the defining point of your life. Let that be the beginning or the start of a new thing. I believe in rebirth. You can go to rebirth as much as you need to. You can start over as much as you need to. Don't disqualify yourself because something didn't work out. Sometimes you just need to go back to the drawing board. And don't let circumstantial things change the dream. don't, for whatever reason, the dream must remain the dream, and you must achieve the dream at whatever cost it comes. Things are going to happen. Certain situations are going to throw you off, but always remember why. If your why is bigger than you, you will always go back to the drawing board. So I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. You guys are watching the content, but you're not subscribing. I don't know why.
Subscribe.
Please. Please. Thank you so much. Do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Always remember, you are never alone. You are gracefully anchored. Thank you.